Hello, my friend.
What's going on, brother?
Hey, I'm gonna try to. Ah, there we go. How are you?
Doing well this morning. What about yourself?
Man, doing great. Doing great.
Man, you look more and more like Tom Cruise every time I see you.
The straight version.
Here we go.
Yeah, I was fucking around with the lighting in here just before you got on. I'm like, I've just put my computer on. I open it up. I don't really try to look like I could look better. Maybe if I get it from this angle. But you know what? Like I'm holding my computer up like this and shit, and I'm going. You know what? This is fine. I got my
Yeah.
Bears shirt in the background. I got my Bears shirt. It's all good.
Love it.
Yeah,
Ride hard for them Bears, man.
man. What are you, a Raiders guy?
San Francisco 49ers.
Oh, that's right, 49ers. Yeah, you guys have had a nice long
Hiatus.
periods of prosperity. We had our
Everything.
one.
San Francisco.
Oh man. So we have, Chicago is before I introduce you, we just bullshit, We got a lot to talk about. And it's funny that I have you on at these times when we have a lot to talk about. I'm glad we waited, to have you, that I waited to have you. But I do want to talk sports for a second. So the Bears, we have our one team. We had our one, which, you can go through articles and research, and people generally will say the greatest team to play a single season was the '85 Bears.
I was there.
I don't know. I don't know if I think I might trade that for the legacy of the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, we could have had Joe Montana in 1979. Do you know that?
Oh man, when you look at some of the, like, being a Bay Area fan, San Francisco actually rose to prominence in '81. But before that, they were mediocre, and they always got the shit beat out of them.
Oh yeah, by Dallas, right?
Yep. And so, we could have had so many players, we traded so many, and then as luck would have it, kind of like the Patriot run. You put in a GM that knows what he's doing, you get a good coach, you start drafting players, and the magic happens. And, for whatever reason, that could be the Padres if they ever decided they wanted to, play football or play baseball. It was the Clippers when they brought in Steve Ballmer, because that climate, it was just, some teams are just conducive to being mediocre. And you can see it the way they draft players. You can see it the way they draft personnel. And let's see. If I had 5 years of bad luck, people would be like, man, that's 5 years of bad luck. But if I had 25 years of bad luck, somebody in my party would be like, we got to intervene because this dumb shit doesn't know what he's doing. So sometimes, the Bears, I think, they
we have great teams. I mean, we haven't won a big one, but we've had periods since '85 where the Bears have been very good. I mean, went to a Super Bowl, and we just, quarterbacks have been a problem, but we went to a Super Bowl with that. That would be considered one of the great defenses of all time had we won that Super Bowl. That Lovie Smith, Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, Peanut Tillman.
That's another thing, though. Like even now, Mitchell Trubisky, who I thought was going to be like the next Aaron Rodgers or somebody of that caliber, you go, okay, the development, because I'm a development guy.
What do you think of Trubisky? Let's talk about this. How do you think there's still a chance that he could surprise people and end up being a superstar in the NFL, or do you think it's over?
Well, here's the deal. Usually a window closes really quick, but if I'm not mistaken, he's had different offensive coordinators, and he started out very well. So for me, I think it's more of player development at a certain point. He regressed, the line was kind of bad, and he was on the run and all this other stuff. And you know what the problem is? Just bring somebody in to fix it. Because I think he has the tools. And he's 3 years in, 4 years in?
3.
Yeah, so, like in the old days, man, once you got sacked, you were done. But I think he still got an upside, but like everybody's clamoring for him to like get, the climate today, man, if you don't make it in 2 seconds, they're like, get out of here.
People forget how bad quarterbacks like Phil Simms were, and quarterbacks like even Manning and Breeze in their first couple seasons were not. They struggled the first couple seasons in the NFL. I mean, maybe 2 seasons in the NFL, and then in the 3rd season, I think. But I remember Drew Brees struggling for a couple seasons in the NFL.
Yep.
So
it happens.
Right, but we have a Super Bowl caliber defense in Chicago, so we don't want the window on that to close.
Right.
So I guess that's what, as a Bear fan, that's what's stressful for me, is I'm like, if we don't do something on the offensive side, this defensive window is going to close like it did on Lovie Smith's Bears, when they put in the Jay Cutler experiment, which was.
Oh, man. You said Jay Cutler. I'm like, oh, being very cavalier.
So this is a perfect segue, Jay Cutler. This is a perfect segue to a great thing that I had no idea I was going to talk to you about, but now with Bay Area and football, discussing, and I want to discuss football in relation to this too, not just social stuff, social justice, but Colin Kaepernick. And Jay Cutler was one of the worst quarterbacks, just in so many ways that we don't need to go into.
Right.
But Colin Kaepernick, he came out of the gate like a racehorse, and even before he started protesting, he was his game was regressing.
Right.
And you as a Niner fan know this. It was starting to get bad. And I think he was benched, and I don't remember, because I'm not a Niner fan, I didn't follow it that closely. But obviously I want to get your opinion on Kaepernick. And you probably know my opinion on Kaepernick because you've seen my post. But do you think if he was Lamar Jackson, or he was a quarterback who hadn't regressed in his play, that teams would have gone and looked the other way and gone, he can kneel, he can do whatever the fuck he wants. If he was Dan Marino, he can do whatever he wants. The distraction is worth, it's worth, whatever this guy is worth the distraction he's going to cause, because we're going to win. Because, yeah.
I'll give you my opinion about Kaepernick first. As a football player, as an activist, I have the most respect for him, and he's way ahead of his time, as you can see now.
Agreed.
But as completely. A football player, like so many others, like David Klingler or Andre Ware or people that came out, I hate running quarterbacks. I hate running quarterbacks because to me, they are just like point guards that shoot too much. Quarterback is a facilitator. He's supposed to get the ball to certain people. If you've seen my posts, anytime somebody says something about Colin Kaepernick as a football player, I just go back to either the 2013 or 2015 season, when instead of putting the ball over the outside shoulder of Crabtree, he underthrows the ball to the inside. Richard Sherman is clearly beat, but because the ball is thrown to the inside, he has a chance to make the play. He tips it, Earl Thomas catches it, Seattle wins, and then they subsequently go on to win the Super Bowl. Or they go on to play in the Super Bowl. I don't know. I can't even remember if they won. But I think they won because the NFC was just stronger that year. But his game was always run first. And
that confuses defenses at first.
And that's what happened. When he first came in as a rookie, he came in as a rookie and defenses were used to, I think it was Jim Garcia that they had Alex Smith.
Right.
And so he took the league by storm. But you have everything, as you know, as we get older, is about progression. Running for a quarterback in his second, third, fourth year, the Michael Vick story has been told so many times. It's not good. And it also creates you to be a ball hog. So, even when he went to the Super Bowl, people say, oh, he took him to the Super Bowl. No, we had a Super Bowl caliber defense too. Singletary was our coach. You know what I'm saying? Or Harbaugh, I think, was our coach. But
Harbaugh was
Singletary
the coach, but you had the Patrick Willis and the
team that Singletary
Bowman
built.
and right, the defense that Singletary had built, right.
So we had a
Harbaugh
Super
came.
Bowl defense. And, when the Ravens won their championship, they had a Super Bowl defense, and their quarterback, they just said, manage the game. So, like, from a quarterback perspective, he was already regressing. His reads were too slow. His checkoffs were, his reads, actually, he didn't. Maybe he does now. He wasn't reading defenses as well as he should have. And that's something that you can blame Harbaugh for and Kaepernick, because it's your job as a quarterback to encompass these things when you are the leader.
Develop and learn. There's a learning situation.
Exactly. So, he hit a peak. First, he took the league by storm. If you look at his graph, he went up. And then he started to go down because defenses were like, he can't read the defense. Coaches were like, he can't read the defense. I actually was spotlighting that. And I took a lot of heat from people who were claiming that I was anti-black and I hated the brother and all that. Look, I'm a football guy. I played junior college football for the national championship in 1982. Okay, I'm a football guy. And when I say I don't like a running quarterback, I don't mean I don't like a quarterback who can run.
Okay, wait. Let me cut in here. John Elway, Aaron Rodgers.
You just stopped me.
They're quarterbacks who are incredibly mobile, but they don't use their running.
And that's what I was just about to say. I don't like a quarterback who can run. I dislike a quarterback who runs first. Steve Young, Fran Tarkenton, all of these guys, Lamar Jackson, as we see it today. I like a quarterback who uses that as an extra weapon, not as the only weapon. And that was Kaepernick's bag. And so when they began to take that away, then you began to see his play.
A very one-dimensional player.
And he started to digress. And, as we know, like after, he started to digress and his activism was there too, then, like people were like, just basically saying they had already put him second tier and saying, the distraction would be too much for a caliber player like this. Now, answering your question, yeah, many teams, if he had been like a Brady, or if he had been like a Lamar Jackson, or somebody that was that one tier guy,
right?
You already know our system dictates that you deal with whatever. You know what I mean? Look at Terrell Owens. He could ball
People
his
put
ass
up with
off.
so much shit from him because he was a game changer.
Exactly. But then once he couldn't live up to that, or his problems, outweighed everything else, then it was like, all right, do we really need this? Because we can justify it if we're winning. We can justify it if you're going out there and you're kicking ass. But if you're going out there and it's like this, then why are we subjecting ourselves to that? Because the fan base, you have to understand, you already know as a football player, man, the bottom line is win. You know what I mean? Nick Bosa comes out last year and he's got all these tweets and all this other stuff that's kind of perceived as kind of racist. He's a Trump supporter, all this stuff. But once the 49ers started winning and he started kicking ass,
Brady is friends with Trump.
You know what I mean? We didn't hear anything else about that. So, as football fans, football fans' bottom line is,
Right.
win at all costs. And
I want to
deal with things. We'll deal with them.
I want to say something about this because it's popping in my mind right now. I have friends. I grew up around conservative people. The areas I grew up in and around, and even in my family, very conservative. I would say there are Trump supporters and there are Trump sympathizers. Mm-hmm. And my father is a Reagan Republican who I just had an argument with him on the phone. He told me Trump's going to win a landslide again. I said to my Reagan Republican dad, I go, Dad, this is back when Trump said, boycott the NFL, right?
Right.
He said boycott the NFL. This is how I knew, actually, for sure. This is when I knew for sure that the president was a maniac. And his supporters were had their heads stuck up their Hannity. I said to my Reagan Republican dad, hey, Dad, are you going to give up the Chicago Bears for Donald Trump? And he said, without missing a beat, he said, what? No, I'm not giving up the NFL. I'm not going to give up reliable entertainment that I'm passionately invested in for some fucking jackass politician who is to me, that was I'm so glad we're talking about this, because that, I don't think I ever told anybody about that, but that gave me comfort, because I was like, the president is so delusional. This is how delusional this guy is. He thinks people are going to give up the NFL for him.
But he's playing on a whole nother playing field. And,
he's playing in the USFL, Trenton.
Man, yeah. The Generals.
He was the founder of the USFL. Donald Trump was one of the financiers of the USFL. He wanted to bring down the NFL back in the 80s.
And weren't the Generals based off of a Confederate, like that whole concept of their mascot? The
Tampa Bay Bandits. I'm trying to remember. They went bankrupt.
Oakland Outlaws.
They had some fucking. I think, was it Herschel Walker or was it
New Jersey Generals?
Okay, so they had some. They were paying some people.
Flutie. They had Doug Flutie too.
Right, Doug Flutie, before he became a Bear.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah. Okay. So sorry for that, but we had to hit some notes there, because that was good. So for those of you who don't know, or you're too young, or you don't follow football, there was a thing called the USFL in the late 70s and early 80s that was rivaling the NFL. Mm-hmm. And Donald Trump, if you look into this, was one of the main financiers who wanted to attract.
Actually, it was like the 80s, because Flutie is 80s.
I think it was the late 70s. It started in the late 70s, though. I could be wrong.
You might be right, because I know Jim Kelly was in it.
Mm-hmm.
But Jim Kelly is not 70s, and he's not. He came out of Miami.
But it was around before Jim Kelly.
I think they had they were trying that first year, with the Generals and everybody like that. That was late 80s, mid 80s, because they were trying to rival that whole Bears thing. And
honestly, I'm going to challenge you on this. I think it was the early 80s. By the mid to late 80s, it was over.
Okay, I'd say 80s, not late 70s, because
okay, maybe not. This is fun. I don't have a producer who can look up stats and stuff.
No, but this, we live this kind of stuff. So, for me, football, I can get into errors and stuff like that and see how it was. Because with Herschel Walker, being with the Generals, he had, if I'm not mistaken, and see, this is where it gets foggy. He had to either run his course with the NFL, and if he had run his course with the NFL, then it had to be in the mid 80s, because
no, he came out of college when they offered him a boatload of money to go to the USFL.
Right. So he went there first.
He went there first.
But he played with Vince Dooley at Georgia, 81, 82, something like that? It wasn't in the 70s.
No, it wasn't in the 70s, but the early 80s is a little before I wasn't really starting to become conscientious of sports until I was born in 76. So I wasn't becoming conscientious of sports until 83, 84, the year before the Bears won the Super Bowl.
Coliseum. Remember, they used to, what was the team in LA? The LA Express, Steve Young. So they were playing in the Coliseum, and the Coliseum was still, with what is I want to say, I got my phone right here.
You know what, Trenton? It had to be the early 80s, because Steve Young went to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and they were terrible.
Right.
He was with them for a couple of years in the mid 80s. And then he went to your Niners, and he was Montana's backup.
Right.
So, and that was the late 80s.
I'm like, I got the phone right here.
Yeah.
In my computer, but I got the phone. What were the years of the XFL?
Oh, we don't.
Oh, what was it? The USFL.
USFL. We don't. This is the closest. No Idea Zone people. This is the closest we have to an on-site producer who can be here to.
What were the years of the USFL?
We love our producers. They're amazing guys. They're watching us right now.
3 seasons from 83 through 85.
Man, that's not much.
Nah, but you know, it was, you know, that whole thing too. It was led by an upstart Donald Trump who wanted to take on the NFL. And so, like, back to your point, he's always had a hard on for the NFL. Right. So at least you can say he's consistent in the enemies that he likes to take out. You mess him over, he's kind of like Jordan. He never forgets a grudge.
The only difference is that Jordan came from nothing, inherited nothing, and was a winner. Trump has failed upwards in life and has convinced people that he's somehow anyway. I'm sure there are some Trump people who watch this podcast. If you are one of the, I'm respectful of you. You know, I'm always respectful of you. But at this point, we have to have a laugh at your expense.
And I'm an independent, so like
I am an independent as well. But I registered Democrat to vote for Bernie Sanders. But look, bottom line, we got to have some laughs at your expense. You got to be able to deal with it. If you need a safe space from us having a laugh about the mistakes you've made politically in voting, and I'm not saying I have all the answers or Trenton has all the answers, but you got to let us have this laugh, okay? If you need a safe space from that, the No Idea Zone is not that place.
And if you need a safe space from that, then you need to like take a dart and just shoot it in his throat and tell him to shut up. Because like the other day he said, we discover more cases of coronavirus.
Oh, if we stop testing.
I said, no. He
Stable genius.
Every time Trump says something, I just think about his either campaign strategist or his political manager. And I think to me, they're like the guys in Rocky that were telling, Apollo Creed to stay away from Rocky. Like, just get away from him. Get away from him. It's like, stop talking, Trump. Stop talking.
He may still win. They're rolling out Richard Nixon with Ronald Reagan's dementia to run against him.
Oh my God.
Might he win again?
We really have like got so in our feelings as a country that we can't even tell right from wrong anymore. There used to be a time.
It's our team, your team, my team. It's Bears, Niners, brother.
There used to be a time if you said I grabbed somebody in the pussy, that would have been political suicide. But that only gave him gasoline to drive.
Well, he did. Oh, that wasn't the Mexican rapists. I mean, people wanted. There are people out there that just wanted to hear a guy say what he means because they've been hearing these robotic double dealing liars for so many decades.
Have been milking the people.
Totally. So this guy comes along and he says what he means. And people found that refreshing. And I got to tell you, man, what's the saddest, depressing part for me is I'm a guy who says what he means.
Right.
I can't run for president. Why? I didn't inherit $800 million. And there's a lot of people in the world, in the country, who say what they mean. Why is this guy the one who can run for president? It's because he inherited money and property.
And let me tell you something. To be said about wanting someone to say what they mean, when he first started saying what he meant, I was on that ledge too. I was like, man, I'm so sick of the political police, and I'm so sick of this, and I'm so sick of people telling us you can't do this. But then he started going on, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right.
You want to talk
I don't want a Nazi saying what he means.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about trade embargoes being unfair, Or if you want to talk about people illegally entering this country, I'm all ears. You know what I mean? But when you start categorizing people and demonizing people and being racist, I was like, wait a minute, whoa, 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 whoa. You know, we got to draw the line in saying what you mean and saying what you feel, but it doesn't make no fucking sense. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because there are a lot of people doing that. I just had a conversation with a friend of mine, or at least I thought he was a friend of mine. You find that, you know, a lot of people are dropping by the wayside in these times. But, you know, I challenged him on something because he said, if, what did he say to phrase it? He said, if they decriminalize or ended the war against drugs, then maybe black people and police would have a better relationship. And I said, what the fuck are you talking about? You think it's just about drugs that we have animosity toward the police? You think it's just about us being suspected as criminals that the police have animosity toward the whole black community? I said, man, you know what? You need to really shut up because, and he went on to say something about George Floyd, but I said, you're basically putting your knee in his neck all over again with your stupid analyzations of something clearly you lack the sensitivity to talk about. You know.
Well, this is a nice lead into a topic that is probably something we should address, which is you're really the first guest I've had on that where most of these, I don't know if you watch these No Idea Zones, but I try to keep it pretty light. I mean, right. I've had a few that get a little deeper stuff, but I wanted to ask you, you're the first guest I've had, and I wanted to ask you about the riots. Do you know what, I mean, I can tell you what I feel. I think I kind of agree with Dave Chappelle that the streets are kind of speaking, whether it's opportunistic people who are just going to grab what they want, or whether it's peaceful protesters, or whether there's a combination, an intersecting group of people who are, but I believe there is some, in my opinion, some violent protest is necessary because peaceful protest hasn't really worked too well.
Right.
And, you know, one thing I will say to you, I hope this brings you comfort and optimism. Some of my conservative friends call me because these are conservative friends who I haven't had a ball out conversation or made them feel shame or bad or yelled at them or told them they were stupid. I have said that to some of my conservative friends, but most I try to restrain myself from doing that,
right.
Even if I have that impulse. And I have heard from some, and you know what I found out, Trenton? They're really not that conservative after all. They're really not that conservative after all. They call me, they're disgusted and mortified at the way that the leadership and Trump and these people have handled law enforcement, beside themselves, completely aware of this racial justice. I'm not saying a lot of them, but more of them than I thought.
Right.
And I wanted to share that with you, but then I also want to hear what you think of this stuff from your point of view. I'm white. I'm pretty safe, man. You know, from the stuff that you would have to deal with on a regular basis. So, what say you, brother?
But you know, like, here's the one fallacy that, like, a lot of white people, they think, you know, and I'll get into the whole thing. When I hear people say they're safe, you know, knowing me puts you just as much under the gun of a bigoted ass cop or some militia dude that's just gonna call you a, you know what, lover. You know, when you look at the Civil Rights Act and that whole movement, and you saw those college kids that went down to Mississippi, you know, those 3 kids that were killed from Philadelphia, guess what? One of them was
Jewish.
Yeah, and he got killed because it wasn't because they knew he was Jewish. They knew he was out of town, riding with a car of what they call niggas, and they took him out. So a lot of people, like, it's a lot of rhetoric going on. Now, you may be safe from experiencing the everyday harassment and suspicion that comes with when a cop sees maybe people of color. But you can see now, some of these cops, man, are really out of control. I watched a video maybe about 3 or 4 years ago about a cop in Mesa. And Mesa is very dear to me because one of my childhood friends is there. We used to live on the same street. I go to Mesa all the time. The Mesa SWAT department got a call about a man with a rifle in a La Quinta Inn. I could be wrong about the name of the hotel for people who love stats to be 100%.
Right, because if one statistic isn't exactly right, your whole story's bullshit to somebody.
And they want to muddy the waters, you know. So, but anyway, the gentleman who happened to be white, him and his girlfriend were ordered out of their room. They came out of the room. There was no reason to be all hard ass. The cop gave all kind of do that, already had him subdued, but it was still a touch and go. Made the girlfriend crawl to the police. She crawled to the police, apparently followed the directions, okay. Kept warning the guy, if you do something that we perceive to be out of the ordinary or you do not follow, we are going to shoot you.
Trent, you might have to go back a little bit because you froze up there after you were saying that they ordered them out of the hotel room.
Okay. Ordered them out of the hotel room. The girlfriend or the lady, she crawls to the officers. Now the attention turns to the gentleman. They make him get on his belly. They tell him to take his feet and, you know, put the left foot over the right foot. And I'm going, fuck, I don't even know if I'd be able to handle that kind of pressure. Cop is barking shit at him, letting him know he's in charge. And he says, you know, you obey. I didn't ask you to do this. I mean, just being really demeaning. I don't know what happened as the man began to crawl toward the police officers, but I think he was so nervous and he's saying, please don't shoot me. Please don't shoot me. And he's so nervous and something happens. Well, in that moment, they lit that man up. Man was already on his belly, so where was the threat? But they shot multiple rounds and killed him instantly. And you're starting to see, and by the way, this officer was tried for second-degree murder, but acquitted, and subsequently reinstated back to the force. And he worked for a little bit, but he cited the death of this man as being so traumatic that he was suffering from PTSD. I'm like, you're the one who shot the motherfucker. You know what I mean? And he still receives a pension. I could be wrong on that too. But, you know, as of 2018, he was reinstated, retired, and was given a full pension. So, okay. You're starting to see these cops getting real overzealous. And see, like cancer starts small and it grows. So does racism, and so does hatred. It starts with a directed small group of people, but then it gets malignant and it grows. Just like the drug trade, it was supposed to only be in the Black community. And then it started morphing out to more communities to where the people that were selling it were like, their whole intention was to, like when you watch that movie, sell it to the Blacks, they're animals.
Well, that's from The Godfather.
Exactly.
That's straight from The Godfather.
Exactly. And that was the mentality. We can justify, we know it's bad, but if we sell it to those people, then it's okay.
No, you know when it really started getting into the white community, truly in a way where it became news, let's just say. It's always been the white community too. It's right. It's just a different penalty for different laws and penalties for different kinds of drugs. But really, when it became prescription drugs, OxyContin, legal heroin, in a pill, basically, these opiates, right? That's very white, man. That's a very white, poor white, young kids. So I don't know why. I mean, I'm just bringing that up. I don't know the cause and effect, or I'm not knowledgeable enough to understand the goings and comings and all the reasons for that. But that seems to be an epidemic in white areas of this country, anyway.
Well, meth and fentanyl and OxyContin, they're cheap to make. You know what I mean? Like cocaine was big in the late 70s. Well, cocaine has always been big. I came from heroin, New York City. But, like these things were always like heroin was kind of like a musician's drug, and it was bad. It decimated a lot of black people, so it never made it as something that society had to deal with. That was a artist problem. That was a black problem.
Well, you also have to shoot it up. I mean, you know, it's different smoking a pipe or snorting a line. And
it was also made a black drug, even though we know, you know, like lots of white people took it, lots of Asians took it, lots of people took it. But
at the time, it was labeled a black drug.
Yeah, and then it stays right there. But then you started seeing, like, the war on drugs. You start seeing the disparity between rock cocaine and pure cocaine, the sentences going on.
And that was a Ronald Reagan era thing. And they made the crack cocaine a 100 times the penalty if you're caught with powder cocaine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And those things, you know, still once again, you know, dismissing, you know, the epidemic of cocaine, going after crack cocaine, but not really paying attention to the epidemic of cocaine, because there wasn't a lot of black people doing cocaine. There were a lot of affluent people doing cocaine, or well,
it's more expensive than crack.
Yeah, and it's easier. Crack is easier to go after. But then also you started seeing, okay, crack being in the inner city, you know, crack, you know, being a drug, man, that people were saying, okay, the blacks are ODing on that. Let us educate you to stay away from this drug right here. But money's got to be made. And then the rise of meth, and then the rise of Oxycontin and fentanyl. And now when you see all these opioids being passed, you're seeing a lot of these white kids getting sucked up into these opioids. Now we got a crisis. Now there's a drug problem. And before, you know, say no to drugs, just say no. But now it's like, oh, they're sick, and we have to roll out every avenue to help these kids. So when you demonize,
as opposed to crack cocaine, which is lock them up.
Yeah, and you know, these bums, you know, they just want to sit around and smoke crack all day. You know, I pulled myself up by the bootstraps. You should pull yourself up by the bootstraps too. What are you?
They're animals. The people on smoking crack are animals. The people on the OxyContin and the opiates, they need therapy. They need help.
They need help. They need resources. Here's a picture of Melissa, who used to be a cheerleader, but now she can blow bubbles because she's got no fucking teeth. You know what I mean? And I mean, they're both just as bad. I try to bring balance, because some people have been hurt so bad that they sound like the people that have been hurting them, and they can't have dialogue. I try to bring dialogue where you can see it from one point and you can see it from the other point. And so, like, when it was easy to dismiss these people over here, all those people on Wall Street, or all those people in New York City, or all those people down San Pedro in Los Angeles as losers on crack. Then when it started happening in Michigan and Ohio and all these places, because I was at NBC News when they would run a lot of stories on police, like they were running out of beds. They were turning like police stations and police cells into places where you could house people that had, you know, opioid problems. So much compassion was given to these people. So it's like when you demonize, it's easy to look the other way, because you can always have a justification. Just like when people say, oh, but this guy that was killed in Atlanta, if he hadn't resisted, he probably wouldn't have ended up dead. Well, that's a big if. You know what I mean? That's a big if.
Even if he resists arrest, that's not a reason to murder the guy. You can still pacify the guy, arrest him. Nobody needs to be executed by the police unless they're genuinely a clear and present danger and are armed. How about that? You're armed and there's a bunch of you.
But how many people are saying what you're saying? I've read so many comments. Well, he shouldn't have resisted.
Because they have their worldview. And I want to tell you something else as a white guy. We live in white neighborhoods with other white people. And you get in the mentality of really believing what the people in your community believe.
Right.
And there is a little bit of a invasion of the body snatchers.
Right.
And I think there's an invasion of the body snatchers among law enforcement.
Yeah.
I think that happens. I think you could take a very nice person, a very kind, nice person who was raised by a good family, not racist at all. You stick them in law enforcement, and you watch what happens to them, because there's a culture of cruelty already that they're walking into, and you're going to sink or swim. You're not going to be Frank Serpico, okay? Most of the time, 99% of the time, you're not going to end up with a Frank Serpico. You're going to end up with
it's a power thing too, you know, like
a fraternal order of police.
Yeah, you get a lot of people who have never had power or don't understand the scope of power. I can honestly say, as an armed security guard, I didn't understand the scope of power. You know, you get a gun in your hand, or you're in charge of you get some authority without the proper psychological mind frame. That shit could go to your head, and you could turn into the very tyrant that you swore you would never become. And you look at a lot of these guys that are, you know, somebody made an interesting point. It takes, what, 7 to 8 years to become an attorney, to practice law, but it only takes less than 6 months to enforce law? There's something wrong with that.
That's a pretty good point. I appreciate that. Say that again for us, so we can hear that again. I'd like everybody to hear that again.
But you know,
please share that wisdom. Say that one more time so everybody can understand that.
Yeah, please. Somebody had made a point, a good point, to mention it takes about 7 or 8 years to be able to practice law, but it only takes 6 months to enforce the law. And this was a lawyer. He said, I got to study for 7 to 8 years just to be able to practice law. But policemen get to go to academies and graduate within 6 months to enforce the law. I was like, wow.
Okay, I want to just shift the conversation back to Colin Kaepernick again, really quick. And I want to lead in with this, but I do want to talk about the social aspect of what he did and how it triggers people on the other side politically. This peaceful protest, these people who are talk about safe spaces and affecting the fragile and delicate sensibilities of the snowflake liberals. Yet they're triggered by a guy taking a knee. The guy doesn't even have to fucking say anything. He just takes a knee during an NFL game, and you're triggered by it. My statement first is, I want to try to organize this and keep this in my head right. Before Kaepernick started taking a knee, I remember looking at the stat sheets and looking at the Bears and Jay Cutler and going, God, this guy is clearly one of the 3 worst starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And then I would look at Colin Kaepernick's stat line and I would go, fuck, thank God we don't have Colin Kaepernick, because this is the only guy worse than Jay Cutler. I remember one game he threw 5 interceptions, I think, Kaepernick. This was in the decline. I didn't have any personal feelings about the guy. I just mentioned this as a thing with this very primitive American thing where we like winning. We like winning, and we like being on top, and we like being the best, and we like being loved. And I just truly wonder if Colin Kaepernick had been a winner, if some of those conservative people, believe it or not, would have not just set aside their politics or been apolitical about it, but would have seen it the other way. People who were fans of the winner, not the backup quarterback who was on his way down, but the winner, who would have said, you know what, I could see it from his point of view. And I just wonder, I've thought about that a lot. I tour Middle America, and I toured Middle America 2016 when Kaepernick was first starting to kneel. And I remember being in that redneck bar that I was about to go up and headline in Lakeland, Florida. And I remember the 2 rednecks taking a piss in the sports bar before the show. And one guy was like, you believe that Kaepernick fucker? And the other redneck was like, yeah, what a loser. It wasn't really about the knee. It was about the fact that he wasn't a winner. And I'm presenting that to you, and I want to hear what you think of that, or would you need to process that, or what say you, brother?
You know, there were a lot of narratives spun also, because before, you know, he had talked to that Marine who suggested that, you know, he take a knee. He was sitting down. So one of the things that, like,
He wasn't kneeling, he was sitting down at first.
Yeah, he was sitting down at first. But one of the things that I've grown from too, here's something that really fucked a lot of people, because like you could say if he was white too, there's a lot of ifs, but there was a body snatcher mentality that went on that a lot of people missed. They made it about the flag. You know what I'm saying? Because like he was just taking he was sitting down at first, and they asked him about it. And then the Marine said, hey, I think it would be more of an impact and respectful, because that's what you do. You take a knee. So he started taking a knee. And then the powers that be, media, Donald Trump, everybody started making it about the flag. And that got a lot of us at first. Because if you look on my Facebook, I got the flag. And Kaepernick's reluctance to explain or to speak sometimes, to clarify sometimes, you know, it lets a lot of stuff that could easily be squashed fester. But like just recently, when Drew Brees came out and said the whole thing about the flag, and then
he backtracked that, by the way, he backtracked that and apologized.
And he backtracked, and I really think he was educated too, because a lot of people made it very clear, Drew, when you look at the flag, you think about your grandfather who fought, came home, and had the opportunity to accept and really live the American dream. But there were African Americans in World War II and World War I who also came home, who fought for that flag, who had that flag ripped out of their hands, who were hung off of trees. So, yeah, you can say this is how you feel, but just to make it just about you, you missed the whole point of why the kneeling was in the first place. And that's what happened early on. They made it about the flag. And as you and I both know, those good old boys love their flags, and they don't need a reason to hate people that they perceive don't like their flag. So for the longest time, it wasn't articulated, and then it was articulated about police brutality, but somebody needed to really get up there and say, well, this too is about why I can't stand for this flag, because this flag makes certain promises that are not being afforded to me. I can't say to the republic for which we stand, one nation, because when I go outside, I could be personal experience wearing my work clothes with my ID and everything, and you handcuff me in front of the whole neighborhood and treat me like shit when you could have read the papers that I had in my hand and see that they were from the city of Los Angeles, and I was working as an independent contractor.
How many times has that happened to you, and when was the most frequent? Recent, excuse me.
That time was in 2009, but I usually get a lot of times, like now, you know, you'll just be driving and you'll be doing the speed limit, but you'll see a police officer pull right up to you or get right behind you. And that happens all the time. You know, 3 times I've been, you know, pulled over and had guns pulled on me. But the last time was 2009. But okay. I think in 14, I got so angry because I was coming from church, suit, Bible in hand, the whole 9 on the Sabbath, because I keep the Sabbath, by the way.
Amen, brother.
Church. And my friend and I, he's Latino, but he's real light skinned. You could almost mistake him for being white. We're coming from church and we're going this way. We're going west. The cop is going east. The cop looks in our car. And my friend didn't have any idea, but I said, give us 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Bam, pulled over. And it's so infuriating when you see it happen. And you know, he told me, he said, you know, we noticed there was a light out in your rear, which means you could only see that.
Couldn't have seen it from the other side. Had to be planning to follow you to begin with.
Exactly. You know what I mean? So a lot of times, you know, like young brothers and sisters, they lose their cool because it's so insulting. It's so frustrating. It's so maddening to hear somebody say, you know why I pulled you over? And you don't really want to go, yeah, because I'm black. Because, you know, now you played the race card. Now you're an...
Oh, you're just asking for trouble there, too.
Exactly. But when it happens, it's like, I already know why you pulled me over. Can we get on with this? Can you leave me with a little bit of my dignity? You know what I mean? Can you at least stop trying to act like you're trying to be civil and do whatever it is that you want to do short of killing me? Just give me the ticket and just go, you know? So I think, you know, going back to Kaepernick, you know, like people really needed to articulate why this man is taking a knee. He's taking a knee for police brutality, and it's not about the flag. The flag itself represents something totally different. You're making it about the flag. But even to that extent, you can see why he would take the knee.
By the way, those 3 men who shot down Ahmaud Arbery in Georgia, all former law enforcement, and it took a long time to bring them into custody because of their former connections to the law enforcement community.
Did you just see
that? That should show anybody out there that really wants to look into that how difficult it is to penetrate that incestuous sort of corrupt family of law enforcement. So when people say defund the police, that's really what they're talking about, is bring down this institution that's rotten to the core. 4 black men were hung in California.
Oh, there's more. There's more. The latest, you know, every morning I wake up and I look at this stuff. But let me say this too. The police department is only a microcosm of the United States. And one thing people need to really understand, most police forces were made up of Klan members. And so the climate and the seed had already been sowed before.
Okay, the Republican is going to respond to you like this. The Klan were Democrats. They were formed by Democrats.
Whatever they were, they still were police.
I just want to hear your response because I want them to hear your response.
You know, here's the thing. Here's the thing. The Klan, people say, oh, the Democrats started the Klan. And your point is what? It still had the same agenda. It still hassled people. It still is today hassling people. So when you say the Klan was started by the Democrats, that's like I fumbled the ball,
right,
and somebody else picked it up and scored a touchdown. You know what I mean?
Right. You're going to take credit.
You know, and here's another thing. This 2-party system is flawed. So for the Republican that automatically assume I'm a Democrat, that just shows you're fucked up in the head already.
They do that all the time. They do that all the time. In fact, they think that because you don't like Donald Trump, here's my favorite. They think because you think Donald Trump's a terrible president that you must love Hillary Clinton. That's my favorite one of all.
Or Obama.
Yeah, you loved Obama. Oh, you must have loved Obama. So people out there who are conservative, you know, I say this gently, pull your head out of your Netanyahu, pull it up out of your Hannity, unstuck it, get it unstuck. It's time.
We have got to get back to calling right, and wrong, wrong. And that's going to take a long time because you can see people on both sides justifying wrong and they have their reasons for justification. Oh, a cop gets shot. Well, he deserved it because they've been killing us for Oh, this guy over here gets shot. Well, he deserves to get shot because he was looking in the house and he shouldn't have been looking in the house. People have lost perspective on what is right and what is wrong. And a lot of it is a lot of people that are hurt, but a lot of it is a lot of ignorance and a lot of fear.
Well, I didn't get to give you a proper intro. We just kind of went into it like a couple old friends would.
We're old friends.
But
If people care, they can make
No
it.
Idea Zone, for those of you 25, I think we were about 15 people viewership, but now I think we're at like 28 or 29. For those
Nice.
of you who are devoted watchers, this is Trenton Stuart Jones. He's a comedian. I don't even have a formal intro on him, but he's a comedian, an actor, a writer, a
Activist.
generally a all around funny, smart comic personality. And where are we going to look out for you? You tell people out there where to find you on, on social media and whatnot.
On my social media platforms, you can find me under the Real TSJ. Right now, I'm at every soup line and every protest, and I'm getting checked out for the COVID virus on Mondays. Nah. Right now, man.
He's dating too.
Yeah, I'm on OkCupid. But
he's available. Hey, you and Trenton could win a free trip down to the COVID testing center. That's one thing we're giving away here on the show. If you are the 100th viewer of this episode, male, female, or whatnot, you get a free date with Trenton down to Carson.
At the COVID center.
At the COVID center in Carson. We don't say we don't take care of you or we don't care about you. No Idea Zone viewer.
Or we can take you up to Claremont too.
Man, he'll take you to Claremont. Oh wow, that's now you're putting out offers that I don't know if we can match. Anyway, this has been a really great and illuminating conversation. It's the first real racially political conversation I've had since this stuff started, and I really appreciate you, Trenton, and God bless you, man. What is there anything you're working on you want to promote? This is the time.
You know what? Right now, it's been kind of slow. I'm on Zoom. I do a podcast with a friend of mine called the El Donkey Show. You can find it on Twitter. You can find it on Twitter. Yeah, Twitter is the best place to find it. And usually we broadcast at night, and you can see old shows and stuff like that. And we're cracking jokes, and we're keeping shit light. You know me. My style has always been to make fun of the absurd and the insane. So this system is cannon fodder for me. This situation is cannon fodder for me. I think I would go crazy if I couldn't look at the situation. And I'm right down the middle. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people, man, they're justifying crazy shit. And I'm just like, you know what? Until we get to the point where we can call wrong being wrong, and I'm not Candace Owens. I'm not about to do a tap dance or those Floyd twins, or not the Floyd twins, but there's these Thompson twins. Like there's so many black people that are just spewing rhetoric, and you wouldn't even know they're black. Look, somebody's got to tell the truth. Somebody's got to really tell the truth in order for real dialogue to start.
Somebody could just tell the truth by kneeling during the national anthem.
You know what I mean?
I mean, that's all really you need to know. That more truth is told sometime when people don't say anything at all. I hope for those of you who watch this that you did come away with something good and it made you feel good. We obviously, Trenton and I are, it's easy for us because we're having a discussion with each other, and we're pretty eye to eye on most things politically, but I'm sure if we talk for another hour, we could find some things to disagree about. I want to appreciate you for being here, my Niner friend. I truly would say.
And I wouldn't trade my legacy.
We have metaphorically and literally illustrated that America is a team sport, and I very much appreciate you, and I hope some of your Niner titles come to our Bears. Thanks
Cam
for being
Newton.
Here.
Keep telling them to draft Cam Newton. And get yourself some receivers too. The Lions and the NFC Central, other than the Packers, always make that mistake. Good receivers.
How about a good quarterback? We just need we have good receivers. Chicago has good receivers. Allen Robinson, 1,300 yards last season.
That's true.
Well, no other receiver had over 100. But anyway, all right. Thank you, Trenton. And till next time, we'll talk soon. Thanks again for joining me, brother.
Thank you.